The faster the world gets, the more you need to slow down. Have you ever felt like you're rushing through life without actually living it? You wake up, check your phone, check your email, rush through breakfast, dive into meetings, skim messages, scroll through news, compare your life to others, all before noon. And when the day finally ends, you lie in bed wondering where the time went. Not just the hours, but the moments. The small, quiet, meaningful things that make life feel real. This is the rhythm of modern life. Fast, loud, urgent. We chase time like it's running away from us. We measure our worth in speed, how quickly we reply, how many tasks we complete, how busy we seem. But here's the thing. Speed is not the same as progress, and doing more is not the same as living well. The Stoics saw this centuries ago, long before smartphones and social media. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He wasn't talking about laziness. He was talking about the distraction of being constantly busy, so busy that we forget to be present. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with more responsibility than most of us can imagine, still made time for reflection. He wrote in his journal, "People look for retreats for themselves, in the country, by the sea, in the mountains, but you can retreat into yourself anytime." He knew what we've forgotten. Stillness is not escape. It's where clarity begins. When the world accelerates, so do our thoughts. We become reactive, anxious, impulsive. We confuse urgency with importance. But the Stoic understands, in the middle of the storm, the real strength is calm. Because when you slow down, you begin to see again. You notice the quiet, you feel your breath, you reconnect to what matters, not just what screams the loudest. The world will always ask for more output, more updates, more engagement. But the Stoic doesn't live by the world's noise. They live by principle. They ask different questions. Is this necessary? Does this align with my values? Will this matter in a year? Am I living as the person I want to be? And they answer with their choices, quietly, steadily, intentionally. This isn't about abandoning your job or deleting every app. It's about choosing your pace. It's about reclaiming your attention, because your attention is your life. Where you give it, that's where you live. So how do we begin to slow down? Not by running away from the world, but by showing up differently within it. Instead of reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, reach for a breath. Instead of saying yes out of guilt, pause and ask if it's true for you. Instead of multitasking, try doing one thing with full presence. Even 5 minutes of stillness each day to breathe, to reflect, to return to yourself can shift your entire experience of time. Because the Stoic path isn't about isolation, it's about intention. It's not about controlling everything. It's about mastering your response to everything. And that mastery begins in stillness. In that moment when you choose not to react, when you choose to observe, to breathe, to wait, when you trust that going slower doesn't mean falling behind, it means living deeper. So next time you feel the pressure to hurry, remember this: the faster the world gets, the more you need to slow down. Not as a luxury, not as a trend, but as a way of being, a way of coming home to yourself. Because at the end of the day, your peace isn't found in catching up. It's found in stepping back, in walking your own path, quietly, calmly, and with great care. So take a breath, take your time, and choose to live, not just to move. The Stoic power of stillness: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. The world doesn't need to slow down for you to find peace. Peace is not when the noise disappears. It's when you no longer let the noise disturb your inner world. Stillness, to the Stoics, was not idleness. It wasn't withdrawal. It was discipline, a clarity of thought, a calm that comes from within, no matter what's happening outside. We live in a world that worships motion, more goals, more opinions, more reactions. We fill every spare second with content, with chatter, with plans. But in this chase for more, we lose the most important thing: ourselves. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It's about doing one thing at a time with your whole being. It's about creating space between what happens and how you respond. It's about remembering that while you cannot control the storm, you can choose how you stand in the rain. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, led armies, and faced betrayal, loss, and constant pressure. Yet in his private writings, he kept returning to one truth: your mind is your kingdom. Guard it, train it, free it. Stillness is how you reclaim that mind. It is the discipline to pause before reacting, to breathe before speaking, to reflect before deciding. It's in that pause where wisdom lives. When something upsets you, a harsh comment, a failure, an unexpected challenge, you might feel the surge of emotion rising. But the Stoic doesn't say, suppress the emotion. They say, observe it. What story are you telling yourself about what just happened? Is it true? Is it useful? Is it in your control? This quiet questioning, that's stillness. It's not passive, it's active awareness. It's the kind of power that doesn't scream, but stays centered. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And he was right. Often, what unsettles us isn't the event itself, but our thoughts about the event. Stillness clears the fog. It shows us where our thoughts are adding weight to our lives, where fear, anger, or anxiety are being fueled, not by truth, but by assumption. Peace, then, isn't found by escaping problems. It's found by facing them with clarity. You cannot control traffic, people's moods, world events, or time, but you can control what you give attention to. You can choose your perspective. You can train your focus. This is the Stoic superpower. Epictetus said, some things are up to us and some are not. Stillness begins when you separate the two. Let go of what is not yours. Turn inward. Steady your breath. Direct your thoughts. That's where the real work is. That's where peace begins. Stillness is not a place, it's a posture. You can be in a noisy room and still be calm inside. You can be surrounded by chaos and still act with grace. Because stillness isn't the absence of movement, it's presence within it. Think of a tree in the wind. The branches move, the leaves dance, but the trunk remains anchored. Stillness is your trunk. It is your anchor. It's what keeps you rooted when life tries to pull you in every direction. To live without stillness is to be at the mercy of every impulse, every headline, every opinion. To live with stillness is to act, not react. To move, not be pushed. To speak, not echo. And you don't need a mountaintop or monastery to find it. You just need a moment, a breath, a willingness to step back. So today, try this. Before you respond to a message, pause. Before you judge a situation, pause. Before you believe every thought, pause. And in that pause, ask, is this mine to control? Is this thought helping me or hurting me? Can I choose peace instead of pressure? Because stillness isn't about doing less. It's about doing what matters more deliberately, more clearly, more calmly. And in a world that moves too fast, your stillness isn't weakness, it's strength. The kind of strength that builds wisdom, that nurtures resilience, that reminds you who you are beneath the noise. So walk slowly, speak mindfully, breathe deeply, and return to your center again and again. That's the Stoic power of stillness. Letting go of the need to prove yourself. Have you ever paused and asked yourself, why am I doing all this? Why the endless effort to impress? Why the constant push to be seen, liked, praised? There's a subtle pressure we rarely talk about. The pressure to prove that we're worthy of admiration, worthy of attention, worthy of love. It's an invisible race. And even when we win, we often still feel lost. The Stoics understood this trap long before social media made it visible. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." A warning that applies more today than ever. Because when we try to be everything for everyone, we forget who we truly are. Letting go of the need to prove yourself doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start living from within. It means you value your own voice more than the echo of applause. Much of our stress, anxiety, and burnout doesn't come from failure, but from trying to look like we're never failing, from trying to meet standards we didn't choose, to chase goals that aren't truly ours. When you feel like you have to constantly prove your worth, life becomes performance, not presence. You dress for others, you speak for others, you live for others, and slowly, quietly, you disappear from your own life. The Stoics invite us to return to a self that doesn't need validation, but seeks alignment with your values, your principles, your truth. Imagine this. What if you stopped running after approval and simply stood still with integrity? What if you did something kind without needing credit? What if you made progress without broadcasting it? That is strength, quiet strength. And it doesn't need a stage. When we live to be seen, we are always in someone else's spotlight. But when we live to be sincere, we carry our own light, and it never dims. Seneca also said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And craving attention, craving admiration, can make the richest life feel empty, because no amount of praise will ever satisfy a soul that doesn't know how to rest in itself. Letting go of the need to prove yourself means learning to rest. Rest in your efforts. Rest in your truth. Rest in knowing that doing your best is enough, not because the world agrees, but because your conscience does. So how do we start letting go? We begin by noticing. Noticing when you're posting something just for validation. Noticing when you're overworking because you're afraid of looking lazy. Noticing when a no feels scary, not because it's wrong, but because you fear disappointing someone. That awareness, gentle, honest, is the first step toward freedom. You don't have to broadcast your worth. You can embody it. You can live it quietly in the way you treat people, in the way you stay consistent with your values, in the way you show up even when no one's watching. And slowly, the craving to be noticed fades and something deeper grows in its place: contentment. Contentment is not laziness, it's not settling, it's peace. It's knowing that your value is not up for auction. It was never meant to be judged by trends, likes, or applause. It was always meant to be grounded in your character. So ask yourself, would I still do this if no one knew I did? Would I still choose this if no one praised me for it? Would I still show up if no one clapped? If the answer is yes, you're living truthfully. And if not, that's not failure, that's an invitation. An invitation to return to yourself, to stop proving and start being. Because your worth is not a performance, it's a presence. And when you let go of the need to prove, you find something better: freedom, stillness, self-respect. You begin to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. You start to breathe again, and in that breath, you remember something important. You were enough before anyone told you so, and you still are. The Stoic mindset, choosing meaning over momentum. We live in an age of velocity, deadlines, notifications, hustle culture. The world celebrates motion, faster, busier, louder. But in the midst of all this doing, we rarely pause to ask, to what end? What is all this movement for? What is the purpose of the pace? This is where Stoicism offers something radical. In a world that urges us to do more, be more, chase more, the Stoic asks, what truly matters? Instead of chasing momentum, Stoicism invites us to choose meaning, to act not out of habit or pressure, but out of clarity, out of intention. And Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." We rush through life as if the point is to reach the finish line faster. But what if the point is not speed, but depth? What if the real measure of a life well lived is not how much we've done, but how aligned we've been? Momentum by itself is not bad. Progress is not the enemy. But progress without direction is like a ship with no compass, moving fast but lost at sea. The Stoic mindset is not about doing less, it's about doing what matters on purpose. It's about saying, I may not do everything, but what I choose with care. There's strength in that. There's peace in that. In modern life, we often confuse urgency with importance. We feel that if something demands our attention now, it must be worth our energy. But the Stoics remind us, just because the world is loud doesn't mean it's wise. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor with unthinkable responsibilities, still made time to reflect every day. He journaled, he questioned his thoughts, he returned to what mattered. If he could do that in the midst of leading an empire, maybe we can find a moment between meetings, between emails, between the rush, to ask, is this aligned with the kind of life I want to live? When you slow down long enough to ask that, you reclaim your mind, you reclaim your day, you reclaim your power. Because here's the truth. Many people are tired, not from physical exhaustion, but from emotional misalignment, from constantly saying yes to things they don't truly care about, from living lives that look successful but feel empty. The Stoic doesn't wait for burnout to recalibrate. They choose their direction first, then move with purpose. There's a quiet joy that comes from saying, I know what matters to me, and I will not be swayed by the noise. In that clarity, you stop reacting, you start responding, you stop rushing, you start moving with grace. Momentum without meaning is just motion, but meaning, when chosen deliberately, becomes a compass that guides even the smallest steps. Every word you speak, every task you accept, every boundary you draw becomes an expression of your values. That's what Stoicism teaches. Not to withdraw from the world, but to walk through it with awareness. Not to do nothing, but to do the right thing. Even if that means doing less, saying no, or standing still while others sprint. There's courage in choosing a slower path if it leads to something deeper. There's wisdom in asking, will this matter in 5 years? Does this reflect who I want to become? Let others chase the wind. You walk with intention. Because the Stoic knows, calm is not found by slowing the world, but by slowing yourself long enough to choose what's worthy of your energy. So next time life pushes you to rush, pause and ask, to what end? Let that question guide you back to what truly matters, to the kind of life that doesn't just move fast, but moves true. Escape the trap of comparison and conformity. Have you ever felt like you're falling behind, but you're not even sure what race you're in? You scroll, you compare, you doubt, you see others winning, building, traveling, achieving, and you wonder, am I enough? Am I doing enough? This is the quiet trap of modern life, comparison, and its close cousin, conformity. We don't just want to succeed, we want to succeed like everyone else. We want approval, we want applause. We want to fit in, even if it costs us our peace. But Stoicism teaches a radical idea. You were never meant to be anyone else. Epictetus said, you are not disturbed by events, but by your opinion of them. And that includes your opinion of yourself when you look through someone else's lens. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're just distracted from your own path, your own truth, your own rhythm. When you measure your life by someone else's story, you lose the plot of your own. And the irony? Most of the people you compare yourself to are also comparing themselves to someone else. It's an infinite mirror. No end, no peace, no truth. The Stoics knew this long ago. They warned us, if you tie your worth to external validation, you will always be at the mercy of others. Seneca said, a man who follows someone else not only does not find anything, he is not even looking. Comparison and conformity don't just distract you, they disconnect you from your inner compass. But stillness is the antidote. Stillness is the courage to pause the scroll, to turn down the noise, and to ask yourself, what do I actually want? What does a meaningful life look like to me? Because real strength isn't found in chasing every trend. It's found in standing still while the world runs in circles. To live your own truth often means walking alone for a while. It means being misunderstood. It means saying no to what everyone else says yes to. And that takes courage. The kind of courage that doesn't look flashy, but feels like peace. The kind of courage that can sit in silence and not feel empty. That can watch others rise and not feel small. That can choose a quieter life and not feel invisible. Stoicism isn't about being cold. It's about being clear on what's yours to carry and what you can finally set down. You can set down the pressure to prove. You can set down the need to keep up. You can set down the illusion that your value depends on anyone else's timeline, because it doesn't. You don't have to go viral to be valid. You don't need permission to rest. You don't need to match anyone's pace to be making progress. You just need to return to your own mind, your own heart, your own voice. That's where freedom lives. Comparison steals joy. Conformity steals identity. Stillness gives them both back. So here's the invitation. Stop measuring. Start living. Start asking, would I still do this if no one noticed? Would I still want this if it wasn't trendy? Would I still be proud if I followed my path quietly? And if the answer is yes, you're free. Because freedom isn't the absence of pressure. It's the presence of alignment. It's waking up and knowing I may not have everything, but I have myself. And that is enough. So let the world chase. Let it compare. Let it conform. You stay rooted. You stay true. You don't need to be them. You just need to be you. Fully, unapologetically, quietly, powerful. Because at the end of the day, it's not how many people approve of your life, it's whether you do. It's when the moment you stop trying to be someone else, you finally remember who you were all along. Solitude and inner connection. True calm isn't found in the absence of people. It's found in presence with yourself. When was the last time you sat with yourself, not out of loneliness, but out of love? In a world that constantly tells us to stay connected, we often forget the most important connection of all, the one with our own soul. We fear solitude. We equate being alone with being empty. But solitude, when embraced mindfully, becomes a sanctuary, a sacred space where the noise fades and clarity begins. The Stoics understood this. They were not hermits, yet they cherished solitude. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by politics and war, wrote his meditations not for the world, but for himself. In the stillness of his own mind, he sought truth, not approval. Epictetus reminded us, no man is free who is not master of himself. And self-mastery doesn't grow in the chaos of constant noise. It takes root in quiet places. You see, real calm is not about pushing the world away. It's about being so rooted within yourself that the world no longer pulls you apart. That kind of peace is built, not found. And it starts with creating space, sacred space, unrushed mornings where the sun rises not just outside your window, but inside your chest. Evenings without a screen where silence becomes a friend, not a threat. Walks where you don't count steps, but listen to thoughts. In these moments, you meet yourself again, not the role you play, not the image others see, but the raw, quiet presence of who you truly are. And in that presence, there is wisdom. You begin to notice things, how your thoughts rise like waves, then settle, how your emotions whisper before they scream, how your intuition speaks when everything else goes quiet. Most of us run from this. We stay busy. We scroll, reply, distract, consume, not because we love noise, but because we're scared of what we'll hear in the silence. But silence is not the enemy. It's the invitation. The invitation to come home, to rest in your own being, to realize that your worth was never based on being seen, only on being real. And that's the gift of solitude. Not separation, but return. Not emptiness, but depth. When you're connected to yourself, you're less reactive to the world. You don't chase opinions. You don't fear disapproval. You're anchored, not adrift. You begin to choose what aligns with you instead of what pleases everyone else. And here's something powerful. When you no longer fear being alone, you become incredibly free. Free to think clearly, free to feel fully, free to walk away from noise that no longer serves your peace. Solitude also deepens your relationships, not weakens them. Because when you are full within, you stop demanding others to fill you. You meet them as equals, not as rescue boats. You love more purely, you listen more deeply, you give more freely, because you're not giving from emptiness but from abundance. So let the world rush. Let it be loud. You slow down, you light a candle in your room in your heart, you breathe, you write, you walk, you simply be. That's enough. You're enough. Let solitude be your strength. Let stillness be your sanctuary. Let the connection within guide you through the noise without. Because when the storms come, and they always do, your peace won't be shaken. Not because the world is quiet, but because you are. So ask yourself tonight or tomorrow morning, have I made time for myself lately? Not for tasks, not for goals, but for presence. Because the deeper your connection with yourself, the more beautifully you'll walk through the world. Whole, grounded, unmoved, not lonely, but complete. Calm is a quiet kind of power. Let's return to that question we opened with. Are you living or just rushing? It's not always easy to answer, is it? Because most of us are doing so much, checking tasks, hitting goals, staying connected, that we mistake movement for meaning. But here's the quiet truth the Stoics knew well. To live deeply, you must first learn to be still. In the world's eyes, calmness often looks like passivity, like you're not trying hard enough, like you're falling behind. But the Stoics saw it differently. To them, calmness wasn't weakness. It was maturity. It was clarity. It was the ability to see clearly while others were lost in noise. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet still wrote pages to himself about presence, patience, and poise. He wasn't looking for applause, he was training his soul. Even at the top, he knew, if you lose your calm, you lose your freedom. Because calm isn't just about sitting still. It's about standing strong without shouting, choosing wisely without reacting, moving through the world with grace even when it's chaotic. That's power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures. In stillness, you begin to see how much energy we waste chasing approval, comparing lives, rushing through things we don't even care about. And once you see that, you can choose differently. You can walk slower, not out of laziness, but out of presence. You can speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you've learned when silence says more. You can stop chasing everything and start choosing what truly matters. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find that peace was never something you had to find. It was something you had to allow. It was waiting all along, beneath the noise, beneath the urgency. It was in the breath you never noticed, the walk you never rushed, the moment you were fully there for. That's the power of calm. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, but it transforms everything it touches. Because when you are calm, you listen better, you see clearer, you respond with intention instead of impulse. You stop living like time is running out and start living like every moment is enough. Seneca once wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it, and the best way to use it? Fully, freely, calmly." So today, maybe try something different. Don't rush to fix every flaw. Don't race to catch up to a version of yourself the world says you should be. Just pause, breathe, notice, return to yourself. Because in a noisy, rushing world, the calm soul is not behind, it's ahead. Let the world be fast, you be rooted. Because every time you choose calm over chaos, presence over pressure, peace over performance, you remind the world of a different kind of power, a quiet kind, a steady kind, a real kind. And that, my friend, is the Stoic way.